Is there a reason why the response to the California wildfires are being blamed on the state government, but Hurricane Milton was blamed on the federal government? Look at who was doing the blaming and who was being blamed. Hurricane Milton hit a Republican-controlled state, Florida. The wildfires are ravaging a democratically controlled state, California. In both instances, the people doing the blaming were MAGA Republicans. They are blaming their political rivals. One reason I can think of: there's no presidential election cycle to game this time. I cannot speak on the hurricanes, but the fires are somewhat the responsibility of the state and more so, local government. Gov. Newsom, to his credit, seems to have responded swiftly, deploying the National Guard and sending faraway fire teams. Our local government, however, made the fires worse. Poor water infrastructure, fire department budget cuts to feed the salary of the notoriously corrupt LAPD, and refusal to okay brush clearance all worsened these fires. The government is not entirely at fault, but could have done a lot more to prevent things like this, especially when this is a known issue. And most importantly, the mayor refused to take responsibility for any of the city's failings, claiming that the budget cuts had no impact whatsoever on response, not supporting this with evidence, and stating that infrastructure is not out of date, which is a lie. My house nearly burned down during the 2018 fires, and the local government learned no lessons between then and now. The only difference is that now everyone is underinsured because the state insurance program only rates for a fraction of the home value. FEMA is a federal program that responds after and before, but you can't see that as easily a disaster. So y'all see them the most. They were blamed because people are crazy, but forest fires are supposed to be dealt with as they are happening. Firefighters, which are city-county level, are the responders, so the Fed can't really do anything better than what the state is doing. Boils down to responsibilities between state and federal governments and their rules and regulations. California is responsible for the protection of their citizens. That's why every state has its own fire department system of municipal and private volunteer fire companies. A hurricane, on the other hand, crosses state lines, which makes it a federal issue. Simple. State and local officials dropped the ball in CA though. Same thing can be said about FL, but we need to hold them more accountable. Because Milton hit Florida, and blaming the state would mean blaming the GOP. Because they want to find any possible fault with Democrats, even if not deserved, and no fault with Republican-led states, even if deserved. Because the state government knew that this could happen for literally 25 years. Every time they could have done a wildfire contingency plan, they diverted the funds to other things. They also cut the firefighting departments by $18–20 million. They stopped the use of rivers for a fish. They could have spent money on setting up other refuge areas for that fish, but they didn't. So yeah, it is the local state government's fault. Conservatives operate in bad faith. Simple. Democrats run California and Republicans run Florida. All the outrage comes from right-wing media. Blamed by Republicans, let's keep it realistic, they are filling the echo chamber with misinformation, which creates and exploits fear, uncertainty. They should be uniting, not dividing. But these are not good people, and they most certainly do not have good intentions. Interestingly, this is all from Putin's personal playbook in creating his oligarchy. Blue states carry the burden of red states on their shoulders. They make more money, pay more taxes, and subsidize the red states. So when a blue state has problems, it's expected that the state solves it themselves. When a red state has a problem, it's expected that the government helps them. Easy answer: look at who is doing the blaming. If it's in a blue state, it's that state's fault. If it's in a red state, it's the federal government's fault according to Republicans until the new president starts. After that, it will only be Biden's fault. I think people have the perception that the frequency of wildfires and the damage done by the ones that do happen can be minimized by clearing underbrush and making sure the fire hydrants all work well. Pretty low-cost items that only require the local leadership to do. Local governments cannot do anything to reduce the number or strength of hurricanes, but the state can spend the kind of money necessary to reduce the impact of flooding due to hurricanes. Because California is a blue state and Florida is a red state, that is the only reason. So climate change deniers didn't stop the destruction of climate change? Who would have thought? The PC narrative in America revolves around blaming Democrats for everything. Because Republicans will twist themselves into knots so they can blame Democrats for anything and everything.